Hello everyone, it's Daz, and this week's discussion will be on some themes that I noticed in the Avengers Endgame movie as far as the Infinity Stones went. I was asked whenever I did the Venom video what my thoughts were on it, and I felt after seeing Endgame would be a good time to discuss it, since I've seen all of the Avenger movies and all, and kind of give you my idea from a spiritual and metaphysical perspective on all of it, and this will be my last video for a while. I'm moving today, so as you're listening to this, but I always pre-record every video, and for now I'm just gonna say I'm taking a 10-month break. If I do make a video during that time, then I'll post it, but it won't be consistent for sure. So for now, you can expect me to come back and start posting in May of 2020. I'll miss everyone, and if you haven't seen some of the other videos, I try to group them by subject matter. You can check them out. But getting into the topic of Avengers Endgame. So the most interesting thing I feel like about the series was the idea of the Infinity Stones and how they tied it into every movie. And if you have not seen Endgame or other films tied to the franchise and you want to see them and don't want it spoiled, I recommend clicking out of this video because there will be some spoiler alerts. And I had to refresh my own memory, even though I've seen all of the movies over the years, on what happened. And so, just to give a little background, the Infinity Stones are considered immensely powerful, and they're tied to different aspects of the universe. It's said they were created by cosmic entities, and each of the stones possesses unique capabilities that have been enhanced and altered by various alien civilizations for millennia. And this is a quote from Wong in the Marvel Universe, but he said, "From the dawn of the universe, there was nothing. Then boom, the Big Bang sent 6 elemental crystals hurling across the virgin universe. These Infinity Stones each control an essential aspect of existence." Another quote from a collector in the Marvel Universe says, "Before creation itself, there were 6 singularities. Then the universe exploded into existence, and the remnants of these systems were forged into concentrated ignots, Infinity Stones." So they represent elements of singularity, and these 6 Infinity Stones are space, which is usually contained in the Tesseract, and it controls formidable power, mind. It's also what gave the Scarlet Witch her powers and created Vision, which is a character in the Avengers reality, also called the Ether, which has the power to bend laws of reality and physics, converting matter into dark matter. Then there's Power, which represents the destructive nature of the universe and is incredibly powerful, capable of annihilating entire planets. Then there is the Power Stone, which was used by the celestial being Eson and the Searcher to destroy planets and civilizations until it was forgotten into the orb for millennia. And there's Soul, which requires a sacrifice and represents the soul itself. And then there's the Stone of Time, which is contained in the Eye of Agamotto, which manipulates the flow of time. So for those who've seen the movies, this makes sense. For those who haven't seen it, it may not make that much sense. This is just sort of a background, and I'm taking this from the main wiki of explaining the Infinity Stones just to give a little background before I give you my thoughts on it on a metaphysical level. So it's possible for a person to wield an Infinity Stone without being harmed because they are very powerful, but usually it has to be put inside of an object. So basically it turns it into a relic. And in the Infinity Wars movie, which came out last year, when Thanos collects all of them, he's successful in destroying half of the Earth and basically becomes a godlike figure with the power that he's able to have. And then in this year's film, Endgame, 5 years after the fact in 2023, they conduct a time heist to go back in time and to undo the damage Thanos has done by collecting all of the stones before he can, is basically the premise of the film. And so I couldn't help but think about, whenever I was watching the film, how much cold elements were in there, how much of it was just very spiritual. And one thing that came to mind first was that it had a lot of Kabbalistic cosmology to it. As far as the Sephiroth, where Tree of Life, which you see often represented throughout Hollywood and films and videos, with its 10 different sephiras, and essentially kind of like with chakras, focusing in on each of these aspects helps an individual connect the spiritual to the physical world. And I thought about how that's very similar to a lot of pagan ideas of connecting the two parts together. I also found it interesting that they explored quantum physics and time travel. To me, Thanos represented a Gnostic version of God, often described as the demiurge by Gnostics, that needed to have a stop put to him according to them. And to me, even though the Avengers are seen as the good guys, like Hollywood likes to do oftentimes, it's kind of reversed. So to me, I kind of see them as representations of fallen angels. And whenever I saw the last battle scene, all I could think of was Armageddon. And another fascinating part of the film was that how time was different in the world and then in the quantum world, as far as Ant-Man, who came out of the realm that he was in, saying that for him it was 5 hours, for them it was 5 years. And what's fascinating about that is the fact that I believe that things do work differently in the spirit realm. I don't think time always coincides, and that's why there's a lot of odd things that tend to happen. And some things that, as far as scriptures go, that I would tie to this film with that is, as far as the time inconsistencies in the spiritual realm, I think of 2 Peter 3, 8, and 9. But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. So we see, it could be that God does view time differently, as he is infinite. However, I also believe that even when we think of examples of whenever Daniel had the message delivered to him by Gabriel and he had to fight the Prince of Persia and then the Prince of Grecia, I think that what was happening in the spirit realm as far as principalities warring was a precursor to what would happen years later in the physical world. Also, as far as the quest to manipulate space, time, reality, it reminds me a lot of what we always talk about with the Mandela effect and Satan's goal to be able to undo everything. I do believe if time travel were possible, I'm a skeptic of time travel, not gonna lie. I think there's a tiny part of me that feels like if it were possible, there would be no way to really change the timeline, and there would be consequences to trying to change a timeline. But I do think of Daniel 7:25 that says, "And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and a times, and the dividing of time." So there it's talking about the Antichrist, and some will say the changing of times occurred with, as far as calendar system changing over time from Julian to Gregorian. We use a totally different calendar system. It could be customs or traditions. It could be laws. And I definitely see that. I also think that if possible, with all of the scientific advancements and such technology that we have, if it were possible to do things to alter the timeline, then I feel that he would attempt to do that. I will say that it could just be the fact that I'm getting older, but it feels like each year things go by quicker and quicker and quicker, and sometimes I feel like time is in a sense shortening. But then I think back to Matthew 24:22 that says, "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened." So it does say that God himself would shorten the days too, which would not involve necessarily Satan, because he sees all of the horrible depravity that would occur as well. I also think about, as far as like technology goes and it being used for negative things, Romans 1:30, "Backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents." Those were just like a few of the groups. It was described as being thrown into the lake of fire, but it mentions inventors of evil things. We know there are those people out there who will attempt to create technology that is able to have some sort of negative effect. And I think as far as what Avengers demonstrated there, they're all pegged as the heroes. I enjoy the storyline, I'm not gonna lie. It's interesting to watch, but I think a lot of times we're watching the flip view, and kind of like with X-Men Apocalypse, where Apocalypse was like supposed to represent God, but like this Gnostic form of him that's like this homicidal maniac that just is out to kill people and judge. That's what I feel like they kind of did, as far as Thanos was kind of like a godlike figure in that way to me. And if any being had control of all of those different elements that the Infinity Stones represent, it would seem almost godlike as far as power goes. So I do think they were toying around with that idea with the storyline. But those are my thoughts as far as the Infinity Stones go, as far as the franchise goes. And I'd like to know what you guys' thoughts are on the metaphysical elements and supernatural elements of the film? And do you think they were paying homage to Kabbalistic ideas as far as cosmology goes? Definitely played homage to a lot of popular scientific ideas as well. And do you think that they were inverting as far as, the falling? But let me know what you guys think, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you in the future. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week and months to come. Take care, and God bless.